All right, Vanessa, thank you so much. I'm super excited to have you. I always told my husband that, I would love to travel the world and like connecting with all these people from different parts of the world. I'm like, I feel like I'm kind of traveling the world. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
great that we can connect like this from anywhere in the world these
yeah,
days.
it's incredible. I've talked with people from the UK, Australia. It's just like, it's awesome. So I get to travel through you.
Yes. Well, but yeah, we'll all travel vicariously through each other.
Yes, absolutely. Hopefully, maybe one day in person I can get there. So, first, I want to talk a little bit more about you. So, if you can tell us who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your life, your family.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Vanessa Long, and I'm an Ayurvedic wellness coach for women. I'll get a little bit more into Ayurveda in a moment. I'm also a specialist Ayurdoula, which means I specialize in the postpartum with
Awesome.
Ayurveda. And all of this, I suppose my entire life, I've kind of been on a journey of spiritual seeking and healing. And so years ago, I started traveling the world, and then I came across, did some massage, became a Reiki master.
Oh, wow.
Then I spent 4 months in a Buddhist meditation center in Australia, living there. So I kind of had lots of pieces. I had the healing energetic side, the mental, the mind side of things, the physical side of things. But there was always something missing for me in terms of the complete kind of healing system.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the nutritional side. And Ayurveda had always floated around. I had a very progressive grandmother, and I used to do yoga with her when she was in her 70s, back in the 70s. That's how old I am.
Wow. That's awesome.
When I was a little girl. And I can distinctly remember the smell of her carpet as I came up into Cobra and my nose brushed it. And so that I think, she was very religious. My parents weren't, but she was, and she sparked a whole kind of journey in me, really. And
That's
then
incredible.
Ayurveda had always been around, and then I went to India, but it was when I came back and I picked up a book called Ayurveda for Women
Okay.
that it just all kind of, something just all fell into place. It was just like, this makes so much sense.
Like all the missing puzzle pieces.
Yeah, everything in this complete healing modality came together. The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, everything is encompassed with Ayurveda. And I was like, I have to learn this.
Yeah.
And a few months later, there was a new course starting in the UK for therapists. So I joined and did 2 or 3 years training and did my clinical internship in India. And I was pregnant when I was finishing up my training, and then I had my children, and I used Ayurveda really well. I conceived within 6 weeks without trying, aged 35 and 38. I sailed through both pregnancies because I'd been following an Ayurvedic kind of lifestyle and nutritional plan for like a year before I conceived.
Oh, wow.
I sailed through both my pregnancies with no sickness, no illness, no water
Awesome.
retention, nothing. And I gave birth at home with no pain relief twice, very quickly.
Wow, that's incredible.
This works. This is really amazing. And then I struggled a little bit in my postpartum because I had a bit of a rocky start with my firstborn, and because I couldn't adhere to Ayurvedic protocols postpartum, so that made me very passionate. And I trained also as a doula and specialist Ayurdoula, and took my work into the field of fertility and pregnancy and postpartum, and now I work with women and with female entrepreneurs and anybody who wants to kind of come on the healing journey and wants to take, really full responsibility for their health. And I think as a mother and as an entrepreneur, I think I've burnt out, come very close to burnout, both as a mother and an entrepreneur. And I kind of brought myself back from that using Ayurveda. And I've raised both my children completely using Ayurvedic kind of lifestyle and protocols and natural healing. And they're incredibly healthy. And I can count on like one hand the times that both of them have been to the doctors. So
wow, that's awesome. How old are they?
They're 11 and 8. So they've been around a while.
Yeah, that's very awesome. That's incredible. It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing this?
So I've been in the healing kind of in the with Reiki and with massage and stuff for like 20 years, and Ayurveda for about 12 years.
Okay. Wow. Incredible. So you said that you've basically traveled the world. So I have to ask you really quick, where is your favorite place that you've traveled?
So impossible to choose. Because I lived in South America for 4 years, and living somewhere is very different to traveling somewhere.
Yeah.
And so there's places in South America that always hold a very dear place in my heart because I was there for so long and have so many friends and family there. And India I love for many reasons, because it's like my spiritual home. But I love New Zealand.
Wow.
I've never really been to the US other than a brief pit stop in New York and LA.
Oh, okay. I've not been to either one of those places, so
yeah, I'd like to do a bit of travel over there as well. But yeah, really tough to choose. I couldn't pinpoint one.
That's awesome. So where do you live now?
I'm based in the UK, but I work with people from thanks to the magic of this all around the world.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Okay, so I want to get more in depth to this. So give us like an overall understanding of exactly what it is.
Yeah. So people get really hung up on Ayurveda. They're like, I can't even pronounce it.
I was practicing.
Ayurveda, both are okay. So essentially it's known as the science of life, or put really simply, the art of living in harmony with nature, with nature's cycles, with the natural flow of life, with our own particular nature, because Ayurveda states that we're all made up of very different elements, which I'll go into a little bit more in depth in a bit. But it's a 5,000-year-old kind of medical system originating in India, which governs the 4 aspects of life: body, mind, senses, soul. And it's more than a medical system. It's a complete knowledge of how to live in harmony with nature for a long and healthy life. And the reason we want to live a long and healthy life is that the main goal of Ayurveda and yoga, which is its sister science, which I'll connect with in a minute, is to fulfill our human and spiritual potential. We are here to fulfill our dharma, our purpose, and we are here to awaken to who we are, the truth of who we are. And it believes, it's very much a holistic science, and it believes in the body-mind synergy, that one impacts the other, and we cannot separate them. It says for every effect we are experiencing, so for every illness or stress or disease we are experiencing, it has to be able to be traced back to a logical cause. And our jobs as coaches and wellness practitioners is to try and trace it back and go, what's the root cause? Because if we don't treat it there, we're just giving you a band-aid. We're just giving you a sticking plaster.
And then leads to other issues.
So it's complete, and it believes, that what we do, what we eat, how we live our lives, and how we think and what we feel kind of forms who we are. If we look at ourselves right now and we look in the mirror, we are the culmination of everything we have lived, everything we have believed, everything we have put in our bodies, and every stress we have lived through. We are the picture and the culmination of all of that together. So it's complete. It's a complete and holistic kind of medical system, and it works on every level of health. So nutrition, lifestyle, herbs, Ayurvedic massage and treatments. Yoga is its sister science, which I'll touch on in a minute. Meditation, mantra therapy, which is the chanting and the sound therapy, aromatherapy, color therapy to treat body, mind, and emotions, and gem therapy. So and as well, it has its own unique astrological branch as well, which I'm not practiced in yet, but I'm looking to train in that. So it's kind of really the whole goal of Ayurveda is to understand whatever is pleasant, unpleasant, or beneficial or harmful for us individually. And there is no one blanket rule. Like, in Ayurveda, we do not say that everybody needs to drink 2 liters of water a day, because if kapha types drink 2 liters of water a day, they're already made of water, so they will increase, they will hold water, and they will get fatter. So it's very much on a very unique and personal level. We look at people's natural constitution and we look at their current state of imbalance and try and work out what's going on. So most people have heard of yoga.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've heard of aromatherapy. I've heard of bits and pieces of these, not really realizing that it is just, a huge umbrella.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's been used, it's been used for 5,000 years. And what's amazing about it is there's no fads or fashions with it. There's no especially with raising children and babies and pregnancy and all of that, there's no changing protocols because you can't change nature.
Yeah.
Nature stays the same. It never changes. There's fluctuations of states in nature, but the sun is hot, the rain is wet, the wind is wind, those things don't change. And it's about observing those in all of us, the elements in all of us and the interplay. And that's what I love, is that it's remained constant. And although, there's Western medicine is gaining popularity and in India, 70 or 80% of people still use Ayurveda.
Okay.
Especially in rural parts where it's passed on orally through generations and generations. So most people are very familiar with yoga, and most people mistake understanding yoga as well. They think that yoga is a form of exercise, which it is, but it's much deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
They are sister sciences. They come from the same Vedic tradition. So Vedas are the oldest kind of written, books on health and well-being, originating in India, from which Ayurveda and yoga originated, and Chinese medicine. They also, everything stems from the Vedas. They're the oldest written scriptures. So yoga really means union, and it's kind of union with yourself by silencing the mind through the combination of asana work, posture work, and breath.
Yeah,
so
that's very interesting.
That's what yoga is. Most people think, I'm going to a yoga class to stretch and breathe and relax. It does all of those things. But the ultimate goal of yoga is union. It's self-realization. When you quiet the mind, you can see everything as it really is. And Ayurveda is the science of self-healing. So it relieves diseases of the body and the mind. And the ultimate goal of self-healing, or Ayurveda, is self-realization, is the goal of yoga. So the two together make up the spiritual and practical side of health and well-being in a complete system. It lacks for nothing within it, which is, and it helps us understand the whole of life. Really through those two practices, we can understand ourselves and the whole of life. So, we have kind of, four kind of main goals of life. We have our dharma, which is our inner vocation. Why are we here? What do we want to do? What's our purpose? What are our gifts? What are our talents? We've all got unique, different sets of those. And our artha is our second one. And that's our base level material prosperity. We provide ourselves with shelter, clothing, warmth. That's a base level kind of goal of life that we do. And then we have karma, which means enjoyment or happiness. And again, that's the basic goal. We're not here to just pay our taxes and die and buy a big house. We are
that
here
is so true.
To play, to enjoy life and to be happy. And so many of us get sucked into life and we forget that that's what we're here for.
It's so easy to get lost and going through the motions and just, forgetting that we're here for a purpose, and to not just I work 7 to 4 and then I dislike it. And then, you just wake up and do the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. And we were never designed to live this life. I'll touch more upon that in a bit as well. But we were never, ever designed as human beings to live the life that we have been forced to live, because it's unnatural.
Yeah.
And that is why we are seeing so much dis-ease or disease and stress and illnesses, because we are forced to live in a way that is not natural for human beings. We've removed ourselves so far from nature. We're so disconnected from even sunrise and sunset, the change of the seasons, the change of food. We've become this kind of all driven kind of society and world, pursuing
and money,
material wealth. And so the ultimate goal of the Vedic system is moksha, is liberation and enlightenment, which means, you know, we recognize that our suffering comes a lot from here, and the thoughts we have, and that what we identify with. We identify with this personal being and this body and this mind, rather than recognizing that we are actually the witness of all of this, and that this is just a play in the material world.
Interesting.
So the aims of Ayurveda is to follow a natural way of living, which restores the body's innate intelligence. You know, the body's supremely intelligent. It does all these functions. You know, your heart beats without you needing to beat. You know, if you needed to remember to breathe, we'd all be dead because we'd have forgotten. The body naturally does everything that it needs to, as does the planet. And we mess about with it. We get in the way so much of and we don't recognize and honor what it does for us. You know, we treat it and we abuse it. We abuse our body and we abuse our mind, because we're just living in this very unnatural, toxic world that takes us away from our innate intelligence and wisdom, which is here if we listen. And we do, we know we have an inner voice, but we override it with thought. And that gets us into illness and disease and stress and problems. So the aims of Ayurveda, which is why it's so different from allopathic medicine, is the aim is that if we live in harmony with nature according to our specific nature, we prevent disease happening in the first place. And that's the biggest difference between that and allopathic medicine. And there's nothing wrong with allopathic medicine. You know, allopathic medicine and surgeries and everything that modern medicine can do is amazing, but it would be perfect if the two could run side by side.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree.
So many health problems, as you probably know, can be avoided if we just live in a different way and we eat different foods.
Absolutely.
And so if, you know, another aim of Ayurveda is to alleviate illness and stress when it happens, and then we cleanse and rejuvenate the body systems. And the whole aim of this is to live long and healthy lives so that we achieve the ultimate goal in life, which is enlightenment or awakening or, you know, coming home to yourself. And health is necessary for this. You know, it's not normal, you know, that we often have this lifespan of maybe 70 years, 75 years, if we're lucky. That's actually in the history of mankind, that's really short.
Yeah.
You know, really short.
That is very true.
You know,
to live unhappy and, like we said, just doing the same thing over and over again. That's not what we're meant for.
Yeah. And so it kind of works in this way. So this is where it gets a little bit technical, but I'm going to try and simplify it as much as I can. So Ayurveda says that everything in the universe, from me to you to the screen behind me to the computer to the tree outside to a carrot, is all made up of a combination of 5 elements. There are 5 elements in the universe. So there's ether or space. Space is like the vacuum that holds everything. You know, if you actually look around the room that you're in now and you think, what's the biggest thing I can see? And you think, well, it's space. Space is the biggest thing actually in the room that you're probably sitting in, not the furniture, but the space that everything holds. So space or ether is the original element. And then we have air, which is motion and movement and the basis for thought. And then we have fire, which is light and perception and transformation. You know, fire cooks things and transforms and metabolizes things. Then we have water, which is liquidity, flowing and allowing life. And then we have earth, which is solidity, stability, form. So everything and everyone is made up of a varying combination of these things. And we need all 5 to kind of create life.
Harmony.
So it goes from the most subtle over here with ether and space to the most gross and heavy, which is earth. So what happens is when these 5 elements combine with prana or chi, as people call it, or the life force, the divine life force, they turn into what we call 3 doshas. And doshas are body, mind, energetics.
Okay.
So they're what these elements govern the body and the mind. And I'm going to go into that in a bit more detail now, and hopefully it will come a little bit clearer, because I know this sounds quite intellectual and we can lose people here, but So the three doshas, so the air and the ether and the air combine to form something we call it Vata dosha. This is wind. So this is movement and creativity. Then we have fire and water combined together, and these produce Pitta dosha, which is fire. And then we have water and earth, which form together, and they form Kapha dosha. So there's Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So I'm going to show you a picture now, and this might make it a little bit more understandable. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see that?
Yeah, just a little bit up.
Yeah. Hang on. There.
Okay, yes.
So if I'll have to talk from behind here while looking.
Okay.
If we look at, let's look at Vata.
Okay.
Vata is made up of ether and air. So those are the lightest kind of elements. So if you look at the physical aspect, the face, they're going to be very in their body. Their body and mind are going to be very thin, very wiry, might be quite irregular because the wind moves about a lot. The wind is very erratic and it moves in all sorts of directions, which means in their mind and their thoughts and emotions, they can be quite erratic as well. They can be really talkative, really joyful, really creative beings.
Can you move it just slightly? I can't see the face of, move it the opposite direction. Yeah. Perfect.
That one.
Okay. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So Vata people have got a lot of wind in them, literally wind. So which means they move about a lot. They're very creative. Their thoughts are they have lots and lots of thoughts, amazing ideas. They're really joyful. They're creative. Think of all the artists and musicians who want to kind of stay up all night and sleep all day and have this very erratic lifestyle. And they, the wind, which is cold, light, dry, and mobile, governs their physiology and their mental and emotional state. So they will be very light in the body. They'll find it very, very difficult to put on weight or hold weight. They'll find it very difficult to gain weight. But they can suffer from coldness and dryness. So they'll have very cold hands and feet, very dry skin and hair. When they're out of balance, this is when the wind goes too high, they go out of balance. And so they're all over when they're in balance, they're creative, they've got loads of thoughts, they have amazing ideas, they're the geniuses, they come up with all these amazing creative ideas. But when the wind goes too high, they become ungrounded. It's like, they're blown about like, a tree in the wind. They're blown all over the place. They have all these ideas, but they can't quite do anything with them. They have a million and one things on the go, but they can't quite finish them.
It kind of sounds like me.
The place. Yeah, they're very messy, very disorganized, but very creative and chaotic. And so in their body and mind, they can have lots of racing thoughts when they're imbalanced. And they can have, too much dry skin. They can dry up inside, so they suffer from constipation and cracking joints. So all of these things kind of impact them. But at whole, they're kind of the creative geniuses. They come up with all these amazing ideas, but can't quite transform them. Does that kind of make sense? Sometimes when I talk about this, I kind of think you must probably can think of somebody who either looks like that or behaves like that.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Okay, when you say the wind, like the wind is out of balance, or when the wind is more, that makes them out of balance, what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is when the wind rises in them, so when there is too much movement, there's too much agitation. So there's 3 laws of Ayurveda. I'll just put this to a side for now. 3 laws of Ayurveda: cause and effect. So, and cause and effect is the first one, like what I talked about, where there is a symptom of a disease or an illness or a stress, there has to be a logical cause. The other universal law is that like increases like, and the third one is opposites reduce.
Okay.
So if you are cold, light, and dry, if that's your natural makeup, but you eat lots of cold, light, dry foods, such as raw food, salads,
Okay.
ice cream, too much fruits, too much vegetables. You don't eat things that are warm, oily, and heavy, because they're opposites. So if you're cold, light, and dry, you need opposites to kind of bring you down into a more
Interesting.
grounded and stable place.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Which is why in Ayurveda, and Vata is it's the agitation. So often it's mental agitation and mental stress and lots of movement. Excuse me. What we need to remember is that we live in a very Vata aggravating society. We live in a very Vata, we are constantly bombarded with activity, things to do,
Yes.
noise, sounds, images. We are go, 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 go. And this disrupts Vata dosha. Vata is like the king dosha. Without the movement, these other two doshas are static. They can't move.
Okay.
So Vata is like the king dosha. So when it goes out of balance, it causes this ungroundedness, mental agitation. We can't focus. We can't think straight. And there's no regularity in routine. And this is what we're doing now. We're so removed from natural sunsets and sunrises and eating properly and eating at the right time and eating the right food that we're not digesting properly. We don't digest our food, and this causes problems. So Vata is like, we see a lot, most of us have high Vata because we live in a way that's too fast, too mobile, too ungrounded. We don't take the time to rest and replenish. And things like nature, going into nature completely pacifies Vata, because Vata's all this, and screens, all this ether, this online world, the screens increase Vata hugely. And we see this in children with ADHD, those kids who are in front of screens or play computer games. ADHD and ADD is high Vata. Autism is high Vata, this complete being stuck up here in mental energy and not being grounded in the body and this moment.
That makes sense. I always feel better. I mean, just even going outside for a walk, for a 20-minute walk, just makes me feel better.
So anything that causes things to rise in us are things that increase that dosha. So things that increase Vata is irregularity, too much movement, too much agitation, too much doing, lots of screen time, eating all the wrong things at the wrong time, eating lots of dry things, lots of cold things, not eating enough grounding, warming foods. And that's why we become ungrounded. And Vata emotionally is naturally very enthusiastic and cheerful, but when it increases, it's prone to fear and worry.
Okay, that speaks to me.
I mean, and what we do in our society, in Western society, we celebrate a Vata type body, because a Vata type body is, think of Kate Moss, the supermodel from years ago. She is naturally skinny, mini. She can't put on weight, and we think that is the ideal, but we're not all Vata types. We are never going to achieve this, and so the other two kind of, we don't revere, we don't honor who we are. That's the problem in the West.
That's a very big statement. And it's 100% true.
So that kind of, the creative geniuses are really brilliant, they're talkative, they're joyful, they're fun to be around. But when they're out of balance, they're prone to fear, worry, anxiety, and groundedness, and they're all over the place and they can't finish anything.
Okay. Makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll move along a little bit with, it's very annoying, isn't it, this?
No, it's fine.
Pitta dosha. So pittas are they're fire and water. So you think of fire and water together, that's quite a powerful mix. Pittas, because of fire, pittas are, I'm going to try and put it, I can't see what I'm doing. So it's
that's good.
So pittas are fire and water. So together, if you think of fire, it's warm. So it governs transformation and metabolism in the body. It governs bile and mucus and anything that you can transform. So not only metabolism in your cells and in your body, but mentally, it governs mental transformation of feelings and thoughts and ideas. And it's action, really. So whereas Vata is thought and creativity, then Pitta will come in and transform things. So Pitta types are very warm. Their physiology is naturally, they're more moderate in their physique. So they will put on weight very easily, but they will lose it very easily as well until they maybe hit about their 40s. The characteristics of Pitta is that they're oily and they're hot and sharp. So that may mean that they are sharp in features. So they may have strong jaw or pointy features, pointy noses, a very pointy chin, and they can be very sharp in their words. They're very intelligent, very warm and loving when they're in balance. But when they're out of balance, the heat rises. So they are prone to inflammation, hotness, heat in the body, hot tempers, irritability, impatience, temper tantrums, angry outbursts, jealousy, all the hot emotions. But they're amazing when they're in balance. They're the world's natural leaders. Everybody who is a CEO of a company has got high Pitta in them because they are clear-sighted. They have amazing vision, and they can transform. They get hold of Vata's ideas and go, yeah, let's do it. And they just run with it because they have that transformative energy. So they're more moderate. They maybe have a lot of redness in their cheeks and their eyes because they have high heat in them. They may have yellower teeth because there's more bile in their system. And they're more moderate in their physique. They will have freckly skin, pinky skin, oilier skin than Vata. Vatas are very dry. And they're very courageous and brave. But when the heat goes high, they'll burn out. They'll burn up and burn out. So they will literally, heart attacks. Think of, the high-powered corporate or businessman or woman who's constantly having, boozy lunches and late nights. Workaholics. Pittas are very goal-driven. So they are very external, and things that increase heat in them are things, that they eat, such as, hot spices, chilies, garlic, alcohol's very heating, coffee, sour foods, fermented foods, pickles foods, and also being very uber competitive and having no work-life balance. That will imbalance them completely. They need a competitive outlet for this kind of energy that they've got. So they need swimming's very good for them. It's very cooling. They need things that cool them down. Or they need to be in competitive sports so that they can kind of vent that kind of aggression, if you like, in the right direction. But they're amazing leaders, but it can, when they're out of balance, it can be my way or the highway.
Yeah, I can see my daughters in certain in these. Yeah, it's very fascinating.
So that's then we're going to move on to lovely Kapha. Can you see Kapha?
Yes. Yep, perfect.
So Kapha is made up of water and earth. So if we think of water and earth, it's more like, mud. So Kaphas have naturally got much slower metabolisms. They'll naturally have bigger bones. They're not necessarily fat. It's not the case that everybody who's skinny is Vata and everybody who's bigger is Kapha. It can be that people are imbalanced and have accumulated the wrong thing at the wrong time. So Kapha types, it governs kind of mucus, cohesion, form, and they are cool, damp, stagnant, and heavy, which doesn't sound overly attractive right now, but it is. They have their attractiveness. So they are, they're the ones that physically are naturally bigger. They'll have slower metabolisms, so they will gain weight more easily and find it more difficult to lose weight. They have lustrous kind of full features, full lips, beautiful big round white eyes, lovely kind of, pudgy button noses and gorgeous round features and hips and breasts. And, they have these lovely hourglass figures that they need to honor and celebrate, because it's part of who they are. And they're very stable. They're very consistent. They're very loving. They're very family orientated, very forgiving. They're the people who, if Vatas come up with these amazing ideas and Pittas run with them and transform them, Kaphas are very happy to be behind the scenes, kind of plodding along, doing all the day-to-day kind of, fulfillment of these amazing things. They don't necessarily seek the limelight, but they're the people you want to have relationships with. They're the people you want to go to at work to talk about your problems, because they're very compassionate. But when they have too much stagnation and too much weight, they gain weight, and they can often they will often overeat to replace a feeling of love. So they can crave sugar, which imbalances them, and dairy, which imbalances them because they have mucus. So the more dairy they eat, the more problematic it becomes for them.
Okay.
And they can become stagnant and stuck. So they get a bit lazy. They're the ones who really need to kind of get up in the morning and get moving, even though they really don't want to. They really struggle in the morning, the Kapha types. Vatas will have very light sleep. Pittas will kind of have quite all right sleep. Kaphas will sleep very, very deeply, but really struggle to get up in the morning. But they're the ones who need to. They need to kind of move and shift and get this Kapha kind of energy into gear, really.
Okay.
But they won't want to. When they're out of balance, they'll want to sit on the sofa and eat chips. That's what they'll want to do.
Okay.
So, Kapha is loving and forgiving, but when they're stuck, when they're stagnant, they will accumulate weight. They'll want to hoard things. They'll want to accumulate and become very lazy and stuck with their ways. And so they have to watch things that are cool, damp, and heavy. So any cool, damp, and heavy foods and a very stagnant lifestyle will increase Kapha dosha. So they need the opposites. They need lighter, drier spices and foods. They need to avoid things like lots of dairy and white flour and lots of sugar. And they need to have more pungent things like ginger to warm them up a bit.
Okay.
And they need to kind of be more active than they want to be to keep in balance. Otherwise, does that make sense?
It does make sense. It's very fascinating, because you can pick. Certain people come to mind. Now, are most people one or the other? Or are you a combination, or is just one more, just stronger than?
There are actually 7 different types. So there's a pure Vata, a pure Pitta, a pure Kapha, and there's a Vata Pitta, Vata Kapha, and Pitta Kapha. And the final one is tridoshic, where you have Vata, Pitta, and Kapha all in pretty much equal. Okay. Generally, you will find that people are either one will slightly dominate or two will dominate. So we have all of these within us, and we have all of them in us at different times in our lives. So childhood is a very Kapha time. That's when children are building form and muscle and body weight. They are the cutest and sweetest things. They are snotty because they have so much Kapha in them. Like increases like. Okay. And then our adult phase is our as soon as we hit teenage years, then it's our Pitta phase. It's our outgoing, moving. We're striving for independence. We are, we're fighting the world. We're coming out in acne and spots and having ferocious tempers, because it's our fire which is naturally pulling us away from our families and moving us into the world. And then we go about building our lives and our careers and our families in our very active Pitta stage. And then when we hit about 55, we go into Vata stage of life, which is where we go more inward. And it's the time when naturally we would retreat off to the forest with the elders. Okay.
That's interesting.
And meditate, and then bring back all that wisdom for the younger generation. But if you think about old people, they often shrink a bit, don't they? And their skin gets drier, they feel the cold, they become more fearful. They're more fearful of going out. And they're all Vata characteristics. So we see how our life, depending on where we are. So if we're Pitta dominance, if we have a lot of Pitta in us and we are in our full Pitta stage of life, we are more likely to suffer from Pitta imbalances. Does that make sense? Because we're already Pitta, we're in that stage of life. And if we're not careful, if we don't regulate and know ourselves, the whole point of Ayurveda is that once you understand your makeup and who you are, then you can eat accordingly and live accordingly.
And I think relationships are better too.
Yeah.
When you understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're like, I'm not angry with you. It's my pitta. It's I can almost disconnect and go, and we know it's like, I have a lot of pitta in me, and the pittas get and it governs, seasons of the year and cycles of the day. So as we're leading up to lunchtime from 10 a.m. onwards, we're getting very hot. We're getting, because it's the sun's at its highest. So that's when pitta's at its highest.
Yeah.
So we get hungry or we get hangry. So if a pitta hasn't been fed by lunchtime, and my partner now knows, and it's same with my daughter, because we pass on, our Vedic DNA, our body, our natural constitution is given to us at the moment of conception by our parents' constitutions coming together. Okay. And naturally, we will normally not be attracted to someone of a similar type. We will often be attracted to someone with quite opposite types and quite opposite immune systems, because if two Vatas come together, they're all over the place. They're quite chaotic. It's quite, they need someone more grounding. One of them needs someone who's more grounding. And if, two Pittas come together, fire meets fire, you're just going to have a very fiery relationship and a very fiery child. Yeah. So our natural constitution, our Prakriti, is given to us at the moment of conception, and it never changes. But what happens is our Vikriti, which is our imbalanced state, if we live a long time eating the wrong foods and living the wrong way for who we are, we can then take on characteristics of that dosha that's increasing. So someone, for example, who is doing a night shift job, someone who's working nights, which is one of the worst things you can do for your health, is to go against that natural body clock. Can often have lots of Vata problems. They'll have trouble sleeping. They might lose lots of weight, or they might gain lots of weight because everything's all out of sync. And they can struggle going to the toilet at the right time because, things just are not working and flowing as they should. So it's all fascinating, but, our imbalanced state can mask our natural constitution. And often when people come to me, we work initially on what is out of balance right now. We do things that bring the dosha back into balance. The aim of Ayurveda is not to get all the doshas level. We have them all in us, but it's to honor our own constitution. So if we're a Kapha type, but we have high Vata, we bring the Vata down so that we can be more Kapha again. And they all impact on each other. Vata can cause Pitta to increase and Kapha to increase, and the same with all the others. But the whole aim of Ayurveda is to understand yourself, because once you understand this, like when I first came to this, I looked at it and I was like, I am eating all the wrong foods. And so many of my clients are horrified, and they were the same. Like, one of my clients, he was like, me and my wife have been talking about this for 30 years, but I get so angry at lunchtime. And he said, I thought we were going into all these psychological issues about it's because I wasn't breastfed long enough and all the rest of it. And all it was that he was a Pitta type and he wasn't eating at the right time. And he was like, but I survive on onions and garlic and tomatoes. I'm like, well, you can't eat those anymore.
I was going to say, it's probably very typical to find that most people. So do you fix the imbalances normally by food? What I try and work with is that people are very, very reticent. People want to feel better, but they don't want to change. I don't know if you find this in your practice, but a lot of people are very reluctant, especially with food. We have such a strange attachment.
Yeah. And I think we use food a lot as a comfort and as a distraction. Rather than we use it as fuel for making us feel good and making us, do that. We have a lot of emotional issues with food. So we try very, very, very simple things. We try make very simple lifestyle changes. Like, we need to kind of get up at the right time, and we need to go to bed at the right time, and we need to eat at the right time and eat the right things at the right time. Often if we change those first, people start feeling a bit better. Wow. Then ultimately at the very end, we will start, we might eliminate a few things, but we will not really mess about with the food until we've done a lot of the other work, a lot of the mental work and the emotional work, a lot of the spiritual work. And then we will, I will then maybe go, these are the foods that are good for your type. But up until that point, I may cut out a few things. But it's generally, we look at lifestyle. Lifestyle is a huge, has a huge impact on how we feel and how well we are. And just changing people are like, I never even thought to do that.
To change what time they get up.
Yeah. Because there are natural cycles of the day that are more conducive to having more energy, or to needing to move more, or to rest. And we are not good at resting in our society, especially in the US. The US is, I'm sorry, but it's nuts.
Oh, it 100% is resting. You can't rest. I mean,
no, because you're not being productive. But who told you needed to be productive? You can't be productive 24/7.
Absolutely.
You are not put on this planet to be productive. You were put on this planet to find out what your skills and talents are, and to use them to benefit others.
I love that.
To awaken to the truth of who you are. You weren't put on this planet to work 60-hour weeks and be on prescription medication, prescription medication, because you can't live at that pace for that long without needing some props.
Yes. And then we're so busy, so then we have to get fast food, and
the whole way of society, how society is set up, is to remove health. But then who does that benefit? That benefits giant pharmaceuticals and the sickness. I don't call it, we have a national health service. It's a bit like the national sickness service. Yep. It's not there for health. It's for there to mend you when you are sick, because you're living the wrong way.
Yeah, it is. It's all just a vicious cycle when we're out of balance, for sure. Yeah. Well, everything you just said blew my mind. Very interesting. So I want to try and, I don't know if you have I want to try and create what you showed, maybe in like a sheet that I can send people when we send this out. Maybe we can talk about that. So we're getting close to the hour. I want to just touch on where people can find you. But first, when somebody comes to you, what steps do you go through first when they're looking for?
It depends what people really want. Some people feel quite ill, or some people have some disease, and some people are just like, well, this makes so much sense. Something I just don't feel quite right. So depending on where people are, I mean, normally I never do one-off sessions, because one-off sessions aren't going to achieve anything. You need accountability, you need follow-up. So the bare minimum I would do would be 3 sessions. But generally I would put people in either do an 8-week program, or a 6-week program, or a 3-month program. However that looks and how intensive that is depends on their lifestyle and what they can change and at what pace they can change. But even longer, the more you can work with someone over a period of time, the more benefits there are, because we change, the seasons change, food changes. We need to that's another thing that we don't do. We don't adapt our lives to the changes of seasons. We don't adapt our food. We think we can just live the same in January as we can in July, and we can't.
That's interesting.
So I work with people as long as they want to work with it. But, generally I will not do more than, 3 sessions over 6 weeks. I would do less than that, because it just, nothing works. People need, because we start off on a treatment program. The only way to really know if we're on the right track is to actually put someone in treatment and go, make these changes and let's see what happens. And then if nothing changes, or if things get worse, we know that we're not tackling the right dosha, or we're on the wrong path. So we tweak and we adjust, same as with Western medicine. So we need that kind of pathway to go, well, how are you feeling now, and what's changing, and is anything improving, or are things getting worse? And then we look and we adjust and change. So it's a journey, it's a process. It's really a way of living. Someone can come to me for 3 sessions, but they're generally not going to make the long-term changes. And people need, as people need support and accountability to make those changes.
Absolutely.
And to have somebody reflect back at them. But why are you not? What is it that's stopping you from really committing to this path of, wellness and health? And because often it's so far down until it becomes a problem, it can often be so far down on our priority list. Everything
Oh,
else
yeah.
is a priority
Which
until
doesn't make
you're ill.
sense.
Yeah, until you're ill. But why wait till you're ill? Why not find out,
Yeah.
what your type is, how you can eat to, just having, even that one session of, no, don't, you shouldn't be doing that. No, don't do that. No, this is
Yeah.
how this would be better for you. That's what gives me, okay.
So where can people start? Say that they can't work with you quite yet, but they want to start learning where they fit into all of this. Do you have like resources that people can go to?
Yeah, if people generally join my newsletter, if they go to my website, which is nessalong.com,
Okay.
then they can join my email list, and I will send out immediately a guide onto how to live in kind of uncertain times. And then from there, I send out regular newsletters, and then I have a Facebook page and things like that they can join, and that's where I do lives and stuff. I am on Instagram, but not as prolific as I would like at the moment. So generally, if people either send me a message or sign up for my newsletter, then we can
Chat.
people can bit by bit be exposed to this.
Okay, that's fantastic. I appreciate all of this so much. So I'm hoping that we can maybe do it again.
Yes,
I mean, there's just so many, like you said, I could probably listen to you talk about all of this for hours because there's so many things. So I very much appreciate it. So thank you very much.